I made a couple of videos on, you know, the moon, and I'm going to link those in the description. They're actually one of my more popular videos, where it basically starts to talk about, you know, the moon. It starts to talk about the Holy Spirit, the moon phases and whatnot, and black holes, and how all this correlates to, you know, the physical and the metaphysical. How you could see half the moon, but then the other half you can kind of see like a reflection of that, you know, missing part of the moon, but it's still, you can see the outline of it, but it looks like it's like in between realms, like it's between being here and between being somewhere else. You know, then when it becomes whole, like a new moon, it's like it becomes a black hole. When the moon is full, it affects your moods. It affects you, your energy levels. You get what I'm saying? Now, when you look at these planets outside of you, they have influences and they affect your energy to some extent, don't they? That's why they say when certain alignments are happening, you feel a certain way, you know, Mercury retrogrades and all this fly shit. So when you look at the moon, which is something you can physically observe, it's closest to you. I mean, the moon, it's like, you just look at it. There's still so many mysteries about the moon, yet it's the closest one to you. You hear what I'm saying? Now, you can only see one side of the moon. It's not like you can see the other side of the moon, right? So there's still many, many mysteries to the moon that we can't figure out. And it's the closest thing to us as far as, like, you know, comparison to, you know, Mars, Saturn, which was once said to be a sun. Then you got Mars, the red planet. You know, we have theories that we've been to outer space, but the reason this is something that I question is because I don't feel that you can leave this realm by physically going outer space. That's like me saying you could physically get out of your body. You know what I'm saying? You can't physically get out of your body because you are basically in physicality right now. So for you to get out of your body, it would require certain methods and techniques from this technology that you're in for you to get out of body, and it's going to deal with frequency and vibration. Basically, we look at mathematical equations when it comes to that, right? You know, I look at Darkseid from the DC villain from Superman, and you know, he's looking for the anti-life equation, but it's all in mathematical languages. You get what I'm saying? But when you're coming out of body, it doesn't require you to come out physically out of body. And the reason I say this is because if you really look at, I was going to make a video on this sleep paralysis. You notice how when somebody is experiencing sleep paralysis, a lot of people, and I'll make a video on this. I'm just going to touch a little surface level of this. But when you're in sleep paralysis, what do people do when they start panicking? They start to try to physically move, and it becomes impossible. You see, your consciousness came online, but your body's still offline. You know what I'm saying? So you're trying to move, but your body's asleep. So you can't move, and you start to panic. Then there's stories about, you know, the devil sitting on your chest and whatnot. And, you know, I'm going to get into that because I actually had certain experiences while I was growing up. It wasn't just directly correlated to a demon sitting on your chest or anything like that. But I'm not going to talk about that here. But when you look at this, you come out of body, it requires a certain technique. So when you're going to leave this planet to go inhabit other places in outer space, you would have to actually have a certain method and technique. And since these people don't understand, and these people are you in another version, I'm just letting you know so you don't get into victim mode. But these people don't have that ability that you have. However, they want to keep you docile and dormant and stupid and believing that you don't have any powers or abilities. So they keep you. You see, you were designed in their image, of course. The reason I say their image is because they are actually playing God. They're playing God because they are actually no different than you look at your parents as God when you're growing up and you believe everything they say, including Santa Claus existing, right? But you also depend on your parents for shelter, for food, water, and all these type of things, you know, clothing, comfort. And this is what people do. And then when you get older, you leave your parents and then you become your own man, but you're still under the mercy of the government. So it's just a layer that you go under. You're never really fully God unless you're self-sufficient. And being self-sufficient is realizing that you ain't shit and you really don't even need a body and you don't even need to be entertaining this shit where you're actually in need of anything outside of you. But that, well, I will talk about in another video. And I'm going to talk about that as far as levels of evolution go. I kind of skimmed it through a video I just posted, but I'm going to go deeper into that in another video. But when you look at, for example, the dependency of what you are, and you look at these words such as dog and then God, you look at how dogs interact with humans here. They're basically at the mercy and depending on actual humans for their evolution. But then again, when you look at that, you could say these animals in the wild, which are, not domesticated dogs, they live in the wild, they're more self-sufficient. But however, who is closer to actually evolving to being a human? Would it be a domesticated dog or would it be a wolf in the wild? Regardless of the fact that one is living in the wilderness in its utmost freedom and survival state, but the comforts and freedoms of what we are actually going through right now, that dog that's living in the house is experiencing your frequency and vibration on a current basis. It's learning to love a human another level higher than its species. Yet we're here still hating the government. You have to understand this government is nothing but a reflection of the government that you have within you. See, when you're scared, right? You're basically, your autonomic nervous system kicks things into high gear, such as like adrenaline, fight or flight mode. Your heart rate starts to go. What do you do when you take the wheel? Because a lot of people experience these things and then they depend on a medication to actually calm them down. But in actuality, when you take the wheel, it's all about you controlling your breath because you're aware that you can say, this is not a real experience. My body, which is the unconscious mind, doesn't know the difference between a real or a fake experience. So I'm going to consciously take the wheel and calm myself down to convince my body that this is okay and nothing is wrong. But when you're not in control, then you're out of control. And then you have to have somebody outside of you either put your ass in a fucking straitjacket or fucking, give you drugs to shut you the fuck up. But at the end of the day, when you start to look at all this, as far as leaving the body is not done physically. You would have to require a certain level of frequency, vibration, and it would require a certain technique from your body. Since they are not able to physically do this, this is why I say that everything is made in the image of you, because the technology, everything that we create as far as like computers and all that, they're all created in the image of you. You are created in the image of God, right? Now, God, they're playing God, but they're not really God. But they are playing God because we are giving them all the power of God. You get what I'm saying? Now we are giving the power of God now eventually to these computers. See, we were supposed to use these computers as something to help us evolve into and self-actualize and realize, no different than us self-actualizing and realizing how the government is even structured, because that government is basically is within you and how your systems actually operate. I'm gonna make a separate video as to what systems govern what even gives energy to something else in order to kickstart other things in the body, and everything has to be working in homeostasis. No different than this matrix has to be running on these type of systems working in harmony for it to even exist. Otherwise, this system would cease to exist, which means your body would cease to exist. However, in order for that to happen, you would go back to the singularity, back to the Godhead, but instead they are building the technology to bring these fractals back together, but put it into a mind of a computer. Okay, so whenever you are coming out of body, or let's say they want to inhabit Mars, this is why there's technology being built for them to actually be able to inhabit Mars. You're inhabiting Mars in a technique through a metaverse or artificial intelligence to make this all possible. When in actuality, they're trying to show you how paradigm shifts actually work. When you're in that metaverse, in actuality, you're able to have these paradigm shifts. The thing is, you don't know, you're not aware of all these powers. It's just like when you are broke, that's a consciousness. You're not aware of the abundant mindset. You're not aware of what you are because you're born abundant and rich, but you become broke, and poverty is through programming and your external environment, which environment has a lot to do with it as well. Because even, let's say when you're an adult, where you're stationed is basically the state that you're in has a vibration overall as a collective. And if you don't know yourself, then you're more or less to catch waves of thought forms and energy of poverty. If you're in a broke neighborhood and through influences of other people, then you're more likely to keep riding that wave. That's why they say, show me who you hang out with and I'll show you who you are. Right? But it's because of that. But that's if you're not self-aware. That's why there's a lot of people who can actually live in ghetto, whack-ass areas and come out of it, is because they changed their mindset. Not only that, they disconnected from that. Right? Even though they were still in that place, they were able to come out and still do them and get out of that situation and actually get themselves to a different state of being, or a different state that was actually more abundant. You get what I'm saying? Now, just because you're in a higher more abundant state, such as, like, for example, I'll give you the example of California. That's actually one of the lower vibrational areas as far as spirituality goes. You get what I'm saying? Now it's more or less vain. That's why I was making the example in the video about evolution, the one I just posted. Nothing wrong with it, but there's ways to also harness and make this kind of money, which is nothing but the physical manifestation of energy. And the way you do that is basically powering yourself first. See, there's nothing wrong with how you make your money, okay? Or you know, what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? You got drug dealers who are the most smartest entrepreneurs on the planet. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm actually a victim to this part. I've always been very attracted to the mafia life. That's just an example. Very attracted to the mafia life. I could watch soap operas when I was little, or even movies about mafia. You know, the mafia, the drug lords. I don't know what the fuck it is, but I've always been so drawn to that. But you know what it is? The power aspect of it. The power aspect of it, the untouchable aspect of it, it's like they're almost like gods to some extent. They're not under the mercy of a government. They're just free. But then at what way are they making that kind of money? You get what I'm saying? That's where you become aware. You're at the level of intellect and awareness where this is what true evolution is. But just because you think you're in one level of evolution, you're still de-evolving in other areas. That's why I bring the example of California, rich area, but they're de-evolved in other areas. The wolf in the wild looks like it's evolved in its optimal state in the wild. But then again, when you look at it, the domesticated dog is actually having human level experiences more so than the wild animal in the wild. So who is more likely to evolve into the next level? This is why it's so important to have more acceptance. And this is where Jesus, if you want to look at what Jesus taught acceptance. You know what I'm saying? This is basically the highest level of bravery, is what the Romans did to Jesus, and how Jesus basically went through all that and through acceptance. You hear what I'm saying? Yeah, these are just allegories. They're just stories. But they actually have a very, very big meaning. The only reason people lose it is because they are externalizing this, when in actuality, these are things to internalize. So I'm going to get into more depth as far as to how why is Mars even red? You get what I'm saying? Why is Mars even red? They're trying to inhabit Mars, right? And in my next video, I'm going to talk about, you know, the heavy metals, the vaccines. Why is the planet Mars red? And it has a lot to do with iron rusting. Then the dust clouds makes the environment red. That's a red planet. We're in a blue planet, right? Then you got the red pill, blue pill. But the important thing is that a lot of people take the red pill and they think that they're going to be like the limitless pill. They're just going to know everything. No, it's all coming down. See, that red pill is not God. You are God. And it's about how you process that red pill. If you process that red pill properly, you'll start to see exactly why the red planet and why the blue planet. Because you can leave this planet and inhabit other planets. However, you would still have to be rooted in this planet, Earth, which is your heart. Anagram for heart is Earth. When you're rooted here, that's why they say home is where the heart is. So you're not just being a space cadet. You're still rooted in your physical body. That's what true out-of-body travel is. Not getting lost in this motherfucker, yo. Because that's why a lot of people get lost and they go crazy. That's why you have to be self-centered and stationed where you're at. Grow where you're planted from. A lot of people want to leave and never come back. With that mentality, you're hating where you're at. And that's where you get lost. You learn, why are you even here? You're here for a reason. Everything has a cause and effect. You're here for a reason. Part of evolution. You're trying to go to Mars? You don't need that technology. You know how to go to Mars. Okay? Mars is red. Mars is responsible for the neck. Mars is responsible for your anus. Mars is responsible for your skeletal system. What do you see right here if it's responsible for your neck? Huh? Your neck, actually, the 33rd vertebrae. You have Atlas. Look up the story of Atlas, holding the globe, the burden of the world in its hand, in his shoulders. Punishment by Zeus. And then people want to correlate Jesus with Zeus. Why the 33rd vertebrae? Jesus dies at 33. Right? Atlas is holding this is the Atlano-occipital joint right here. That makes it possible for you to have movement of your head. The anal, right? The anus, okay? When you start to see rituals, childlike rituals and all that type of stuff, right? They tap that ass. And unfortunately, I gotta be fucking like graphic with it, but they can't tap into their inner child either. That's why they ask Sophia, what is the difference between humanity and robots? They don't understand human level emotions. They don't understand the complexity and the ability to create like a human. But what better way to do that than just to have humans merge with AI, going into that rat trap? Now, the red blood, your red blood is also what's ruled by Mars. Mars is a warlike planet. You also got the word Rams in there. If you really want to spell Mars and rearrange those words, you got Rams. Rams is level of memory. They're trying to galvanize humanity. Galvanization even means many different things, because galvanization is basically getting somebody excited, but it's also getting your systems moving to some extent. But then when you look at the word galvanization, galvanizing, right, is you actually adding a protective layer of zinc to some type of metal to protect it from degrading. So when you think about this, that you have heavy metals going into your system, okay, and then they're trying to galvanize humans, okay, what was the thing that was pushed the most through the pandemic? Zinc. So what they're trying to do is with these heavy metals, they're trying to protect these metals in you because that's how you become more receptive. They're not organic minerals. So they actually short circuit your system. That's why people have nerve issues, and you can see the nerve rings in their eyes. It's for that reason, right? So think about this though. Look at, for example, Megatron. Megatron, the Transformer, that's the part of the Decepticons. And again, I always mention TV because they can't do nothing to you without telling you. The whole thing is you have to be conscious enough to know what they're telling you. It don't matter if you don't get it. At the end of the day, they could still say, we told you so though, but you just didn't know. It ain't my problem, right? But check this out. Megatron, all right? Megatron, I see the word Metatron. Metatron is actually Enoch in its human form. And how many stories and mysteries about the story in the book of Enoch, and why was that omitted, right? But when you got Megatron, Megatron was actually called Megatronus when before he became Megatron. And he was just actually a worker bot, a slave bot, until he became privy to how corrupt the system was, and he kind of rebelled against the system. So he was portrayed as an evil bot. What is that? That's Satan, right? And then all of a sudden, he actually, once he became Megatron, all right, Megatron actually got captured by the government, right, throughout the whole wars with the Transformers, and they GMO'd him and modified him to be called Galvatron. And that's where the whole galvanization and all that, you can start to correlate and tie these things all together. Now, when you look at man is the virus, right? And you can see these Transformers were dormant in junkyards, and who was looking for them? Man, right? The virus, to activate this sleeping technology that's from other worlds, with the government trying to intercept all this, right? But even through the process of Galvatron getting captured, he became rogue. He became rogue. They couldn't control him. They couldn't control him. So you got to start to see those polarities and start to tie in who's really the good guy and who's really the bad guy. Huh? The creators don't like what Optimus Prime was doing. But this can go into the story of like the DC world with Superman and Darkseid. This can go into the story of like the Avengers with Thanos. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the rest of the Avengers. How there was actually a civil war between Iron Man and Captain America, right? How we have wars with amongst ourselves over here, with us as the spectators. But this is the thing, though. You're in a business. You're in a company. Are you the president and the CEO of your business, the chief executive officer or the chief operating officer, or are you just a resident? That's why we have presidents to govern, to basically run our country. You get what I'm saying? But this is the thing though. They have you voting. They have you doing all these things because they need you to do that. Those are just rituals. It don't matter who the fuck you vote for. This further confirms that you need somebody to rule you. Stop voting, and what happens is that you're actually confirming to the universe that you need nobody running your shit. So why am I so into this, technology and whatnot? I don't have anything against technology. I feel that technology can help us advance. Yes, it does connect people, but at the same time, it does disconnect people. Watch my previous videos on what I speak on when it comes to the disconnection of how the internet is basically taking us apart. Because in actuality, yeah, you're connecting to a lot of people, but only on 2D. So if you're having a 3D experience here, how much of a connection are you really actually having with people if you're not even interacting with them on a 3D level? Because I'll tell you right now, on a 3D level, it's a totally different experience than when you're actually having just an experience on a 2D level. It's not the same. You have to meet the person for you to know how to read this person. Even shaking somebody's hand, you're exchanging memory, bacteria, and viruses. This is where it leaves information into the Akashic records. The more you can shake somebody's hand, but then again, know whose hands you're actually shaking. Because that's another ritual. When you make deals and pacts, you shake hands as well, don't you? Why the isolation? Why so much emphasis on the isolation part? I'm going to tell you right now, 2020, everything's presenting itself here to you very clearly. That's what 2020 was about, clarity. You get what I'm saying? Anything after this is basically up to you. You're all going to activate. But how much can you see? You know what I'm saying? How much can you see? These are black holes. You got a masculine and a feminine and a feminine eye. You're sucking all this in, but at the same time, you're also projecting your reality. When you put those goggles on, right? Are you gonna fall asleep with those goggles? Because the same way you fell asleep with these goggles, then you got to Google, you further fell asleep with those goggles, and now you're going into another level of a goggle, putting these goggles on. Because don't forget, there's different levels of sleep. In my video, I mentioned the evolutionary part. How do you know it wasn't just one big experience? That death was nothing but rest. That's why they say sleep is the cousin of death, right? So when you sleep, there's also levels of sleep. I could sedate you, put you under with anesthesia, and you'd be an inanimate object under the mercy of a machine keeping you alive, right? Until you come back, you lose perception of time. Why? Go near a black hole, see what happens. There's different black holes out there. Once you close your eyes, you're face to face. You're literally looking into your eyeballs. Why do you think you see all these fucking color swirls in your eyeballs when you close your eyes? Why do you think when you look in mirrors, things start to look distorted? You're going into black holes. When you meditate, you lose perception of time. Go near a black hole. Time actually changes when you go near a black hole. They keep you thinking you can't go into black holes. You are the fucking black hole. The whole thing is you have access to all the black holes. You want to know what's in a black hole? Just close your eyes and know where you're at before you get into a black hole. Because there's different black holes in different points in space. I'm going to get into videos on the whole time, black holes, and all that kind of shit. Because know this, okay? You have the ability to look out, all right? You're projecting your reality. You're intaking information. The black hole that you are with these eyes is expanding. You got to know how to contract. That's the reflecting part, okay? You give birth. You do the work after that. Because then what happens? It just goes into outer space. I think that's all I'm going to cover right now because I'm going to get into other topics and other videos, and we will talk soon.